Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Gear Talk. That's right, I'm sitting today. For everyone who doesn't know or doesn't care or anything like that, like whatever floats your boat, as you can see, I kind of can't stand for long periods of time at the moment because one leg doesn't want to listen. It's still recovering after a torn meniscus and a discoid fix that also had to go on. But anyway, I've talked about that a long time. In general, I'll tell you right now, this is the one thing I didn't get done for September that I still had to do. So I figured, yeah, let's just bust out a Gear Talk, have a good time, and yeah, here we are. And here's the thing. I figured let's do something easy and something new since I'm kind of like in a new position. And sorry about the chair. It's an older chair, don't worry. It hopefully won't be causing problems that much. But I figured, let's do something new. And I've always wanted to do tier lists. Like, everyone went nuts, like, last year for tier lists. Like, tier list this, tier list that. I'm late to the ball, but I kind of want to do one. I've been working on a tier list, too, for, like, way in the future when I finish the Gears canon, like, the canonical timeline of the Let's Plays for the Gear games. I'm, like, halfway through, but I want to do, like, here's my opinion on all the games and how they really stack up with one another. But I figured for now, let's make it a little easier and talk about the Carmines. It's been a while since we talked about Carmines in general. You know, the Carmine Family discussion video was years ago, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to do with the Carmines anymore. We're still here to talk about Carmines because everyone loves the Carmines. So I figured, why don't we make a tier list about the Carmines in general, all the members that we have either seen or know about. So we're going to leave Fredo out of this one because he's not based on combat at all. He's a reporter. And then the fourth Carmine brother, D. Carmine, we don't know anything really about him. We don't even know... Well, they did state he's enlisted, but we don't know anything else. So I'm not going to put D or Fredo in this video, but we are going to cover all of the other Carmines that we have gotten. Pretty much in a 3-tier, just by like high tier, mid tier, and low tier. We're going to use that as the base of like, okay, where do the Carmines stack up, let's say, to like an average soldier, an average gear? Where would they stack up, and how can we measure them from there? When it comes to the list, I was debating on how I would like throw them up in general. And probably for this part, you know, I'll change the display so you can see the Carmine list and everything. But I was debating to myself, like, how would I do it? Should I go by like the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, or just go down like the list of Carmines we're introduced to? And I kind of came down to like, we'll start at the bottom and work our way up, just because I thought it would be a lot easier because, you know, then I can just have everything just go up and build the ladder as we go. So I figured we would just do it that way. So starting off at the low tier, the bottom of it all, the last of them all, I put down for this one, and I have my list here, and I also have everything pulled up on my computer, so like I'm going to be looking in a bunch of different directions while everything's on screen here. But the first one I have down is Ben Carmine. Benjamin Carmine is the lowest of them all. Now, there is reason for it. You might say, like, Ben Carmine did more in his first day as a gear than any other gear has ever done. You're right. You're completely right about that. You're 100% right. I don't argue that at all. Ben did more than most gears will ever see action in general. But there is a reason he's down here. It is stated he's very young, like barely able to get in. Like, he obviously went through the training and everything. He went through boot camp and all of that. But at the same time, you know, they were pretty much just shuttling soldiers in at that point, just getting them through like, okay, you're trained in, you're trained in, you're trained in. Basically, they were doing that, especially for Hollow Storm that was about to happen. They needed a lot of gears for that one. So basically they were just pushing him out. Like, he was having issues like reloading his gun. He didn't understand the enemies he was fighting, think they were monkey dog things. A lot of things like that. Like, Ben was very new. Ben was, like, compared to the other Carmines we have, Ben had like the least amount of training from any of them, except for one character coming up, but there's a reason why he's higher. But he was going out there, like, he was under Marcus in their command, like, yeah, that's great. Like, Marcus was obviously showing him the ropes and everything, but he still wasn't like the gear of gears. He wasn't the Carmine of Carmines. It was still his first day on the job. You know, compared to every other Carmine I have here, that's the real thing that puts him at the bottom. He had 1 day of actual on-the-ground work. That was it, and then he passed. Now, of course, we all love Ben. We all hated to see Ben go, but I'm sorry, but if you're going by like the experience or like skill or like the tenacity or strength or toughness or anything like that, you do have to admit that out of all of them, Ben kind of falls at the bottom of the barrel. Next up, leading the charge for the low tiers, I have Gary Carmine. Now, Gary's down here because of the fact that much like Ben, he doesn't have a lot of experience as far as we can tell, or at least when it comes to Ben, we knew that he was like trained through the camps and everything, was with Marcus and all that. Gary, it's different. Now here's the reason Gary's higher. There's a reason Gary's higher than Ben in my opinion. So, Gary was trained by an actual gear that was around during like the Pendulum Wars, Locust, 25 Years of Peace, and even towards the beginning, although he never saw the beginning, but towards the beginning of the Swarm coming into being. And that was with Oscar. Now, Oscar, at the point we have where Oscar is a part of the outpost and everything, it is stated that Oscar has become an alcoholic, a very heavy drunk. Like, the Oscar we see in 4 is basically the Oscar who trained Gary. But I do have to say, it's still like a gear that was around for both of those wars was still training Gary. Gary, by what we can tell, by like what we see on the post and him like teaching like shooting classes, we can at least tell that Gary has some competence with a firearm. He knows what he's doing. They got him on the heavy guns and he was able to do a decent job before he died. Like, Gary at least showed to us. Now, Ben showed a lot of stuff too, but Gary showed he at least had experience and he knew what he was doing. He didn't say a single word, which in multiplayer we do, but it sucks we didn't hear from him once. But it's shown that he at least has experience and he understands the ropes. While with Ben, this was day 1, he was still learning everything. So if this was like Ben's, like, I don't know, after his first year, like another character we're going to get to, yeah, no question. Like, Ben beats Gary by a long shot, but I have to base it on, like, by what we saw with Ben. He wasn't catching up and getting his steam going until towards the very end before he got eaten by the Riftworm. I'm sorry, but Gary showed us a lot more that he's able to do within a shorter time frame. Now we move up to the mid-tier, and for the mid-tier, I have Anthony Carmine. So Anthony is here for a few reasons. So Anthony actually has, like, a lot of, like, background information you get from some, like, supplemental material. Anthony actually does have some skill in what he's doing. We know that Anthony, when we first met him in Gears of War 1 and Ultimate Edition, this was not his first rodeo. Like, he's been around combat before. Like, he has been fighting. It wasn't like Ben where this was day 1. Like, Anthony, by what I got from it, now this is never really stated, but what I get from Anthony, he's at least got to be a year into being a gear. Like, he's not a greenhorn. This guy knows what he's doing in combat. Yeah, he doesn't know to put his head down, you know, and that's what led to his death, but Anthony at least understands combat. Like, he was able to fight with everyone, and he was keeping up his own pace. Like, you never got a situation until his gun got jammed where he was really having issues on the battlefield or anything. Like, Anthony was holding his own. He was keeping up with Kim, Marcus, Dom. He was keeping up with them, and he was doing pretty good until he got sniped. But it happens to us all now and then. But he was doing good. You know, it's definitely shown, at least by what I can tell, he was definitely on a skill level that was higher than his brothers. At least for some of his brothers. You know, we're going to get to the rest, don't worry. But when it comes to Ben, like, it's shown like he has more experience. You know, at the end of the day, he also went through the academy, but I feel like towards, like, the beginning of, like, the Locust War, they weren't just shuttling people out like it was nothing. You know, even, they make the remark in 2 going onwards, like, it seems like they're just getting younger the more they're sending them out. Like, it seems like Anthony, by what we can tell, like, in 5 with the background information we get, at least had a full, like, range of trainings and everything he got through the academy. He even got the joke of, like, first to be shot, but hey, end of the day, he graduated the academy, and by the look of it, he had some skill. So, yeah, I'd say Anthony, if you got to range him compared to other gears, he's probably your average soldier I had for Anthony. So, Anthony is holding up mid all on his own. Starting us off for the high-tier Carmines, we have Lizzie, or Elizabeth is going to be starting us off. I had a problem deciding whether to put her as mid or high, but I was talking with Brent, and, you know, explaining her and everything, and her training, and how she acts. It really did come down to, like, you gotta kind of put her at high, because at the end of the day, she was trained by Clay. And if you haven't noticed, we're in high tier now. We'll get to Clay, don't worry. But she's trained by Clay. She has the experience like, as by it looks like, a few years on to herself, and Clay has been around a while since the Locust War, and he never left the military. When the new COG started, he was there still, training the new recruits. You have Clay Carmine teaching Lizzie, his niece. Like, I'm sorry, like, she's probably had a lot of hand-to-hand, like, trainings from him. He's probably very skilled at what he does and passed it down to her with those same skills. So you could say, like, well, Gary was trained by Oscar. Yeah, you're right. A drunken alcoholic Oscar that definitely was letting life go by. Clay has never had that happen. Clay's a badass through and through, and Lizzie was trained in that. It looks like Lizzie, we know, was trained engineering corps, demolitions, it looks like, with how well she can handle a grenade. I'm sorry, but, like, Lizzie's got some skill. Like, I don't have a lot to really say. Like, she's trained by Clay, and she's by what we see of her, she does have skill to pay the bills in that one act we see her in. I gotta put her, like, that's what you gotta do to enter. You want to get into the high tier, you gotta be more than an average gear. Lizzie is more than an average gear. She's holding strong. Like, you want to get to the higher of the high class, you got to go through me now. I'm sitting here, the first of your opponent's high class, Lizzie Carmine. Next up on the list for the high tier, I have William Carmine. So you're all thinking, like, William? Some of you don't even know who William is, which, go read the comics. They're very good. But William Carmine is here. We don't know the relation to everyone else. It's still very ambiguous what his relation is. I want to guess uncle. Or maybe, I don't want to say grandparent, because of the timeline-wise, it would be very close to be a grandfather. It wouldn't work, actually, because he states he never has kids. So I'm going to assume uncle. That's my best guess. But William Carmine fought from, like, early Pendulum Wars. Early Pendulum Wars, and went all the way through. And you might think to yourself, like, okay, so this Carmine went for, like, 30 years of combat and never died. Okay? Think about that. So I say early Pendulum Wars. The Pendulum Wars almost went for like 70 plus years. So, okay, maybe like towards end of the mid Pendulum Wars he was around. But he is so badass. He had his own retro Lancer, the Mark I Lancer that was given to him, issued to him. And he did everything in his power to never have to get a replacement. The current the assault rifle is probably the best word for the damn thing with what I'm about to tell you. The best he could do in that situation, he started scrapping it with UIR parts and created this giant Frankenstein rifle he calls Nina. And if it wasn't for the fact it was originally issued to him, they'd have no clue what it is he's holding. It's not a Markza. It's not a Lancer anymore. It has the soul of a Lancer, but the body of Frankenstein. That's basically what he has. And he just kept rebuilding it, and he just kept on going through the battlefield and just destroying everyone in his path and rebuilding the thing. He finally did retire after the 6 weeks of peace was finally over. And once that happened, just so happened over at over where he was stationed, I'm going to look it up now just to get it right, because I did pull him up just to get the name of his rifle. Jannermont, that is the name of where he was. At Jannermont, there was the base he was at. That's where Rom came out during E-Day. And he went against Rom. Rom killed him pretty quick. Rom didn't have any issues. But you have to remember, you're going against Rom, and you've never seen a monster like this in your life. And honestly, William was ready for combat. He was like, okay, give me my rifle, I'm ready to go. He still died pretty quick. But yeah, William, I'd say compared to all the other Carmines, has definitely the most experience out of them all. Maybe with another character we're about to go over. Maybe tied for that. But when it comes to experience, he's built huge. Definitely for like strength, toughness, agility. He was pretty quick in what he was doing for his age. I would honestly say William is probably the second most dangerous Carmine to ever come out of the family. And finally, at the very top of the list, holding the gold medal, we got Clayton Carmine. Yes, Clay is here. Clay is the #1 Carmine. Y'all knew it was going to be Clay. I knew it was going to be Clay. I mean, Clay has done so much stuff, you can't even argue. Like, unless we got a full comic dedicated to William Carmine, going over everything he did in the war, and maybe he did some feats that you wouldn't even believe. Maybe he fought off an entire UIR battalion by himself with his bare hands, and they were all fully loaded and everything. And he was going in there like the Pensang warriors, and he was just like snapping necks behind enemy lines. And I don't know, maybe they brought out like a proto-pseudo-secret weapon mech that was 30 feet tall, and he went up there and he was just slapping the shit out of it like it was a slapping competition, then flicked it in the skull and it flew 30 feet back. I don't know, like maybe Will did that, I have no idea, but we never got any of that. Clay, we have gotten a lot of stuff from. Clay has had a lot. So Clay was around during the Locust War, the Lambent Pandemic, the Stranded Insurgency, the 25 Years of Peace. He is still currently alive, and he is still just kicking ass and taking names. The one Carmine of the current brood that we have, of all the Carmines on this list, that is still alive. Now, like I said, we left D off the list, and we left Fredo, because Fredo, it's never stated what happened to Fredo, and when it comes to D, we don't have any more information than the fourth brother and the possible father of Lizzie. That's all we have. So we kind of have to just go with what we do know, and we do know Clay is alive. Clay is a biggity badass. It is confirmed that Clay is still alive. I believe at the ending you don't really get it, but they did announce he was. So yeah, the guy has survived so many times he could have died, and he's still here. He's still with the Cog. He trained Lizzie. He's the older brother of Ben and Anthony. It's nuts, you know. I guess like Gary idolizes him. They're not. None of them are around anymore. It's nuts. It's just crazy. This character was supposed to originally possibly die in 3. They left it up to a poll. And guess what? He won the poll to live. Then he's not around in 4, but we figure out in 5 he's still around. So 3, 4, 5, still kicking. We learn about his rookie armor. He's been around for quite a while. Clay, I don't have much more to say about Clay. I'd sit here and just list off feats and just pretty much just polish his knob at this point. Like, Clay Carmine is the greatest Carmine we've ever gotten. Unless D comes in and he's like, got a hand tied behind his back, open palm striking like a scion in 50 different points. Unless D Carmine goes like Fist of the North Star and starts hitting pressure points and having heads explode, I'm sorry. Clay Carmine's the number one we got. Like, I can't think of, like, even Will, with all of his experience, I can't think of a way that he will be better than Clay. Maybe aside from experience, Clay's got him beat. So there you go. And that's going to do it for the tier list. I kind of just wanted to try this out for once. As you can tell by the crutches behind me, momentum, movement, standing, those types of things are kind of low on my list of things I'm able to do at the moment. So I figured, why don't we try something new? I can try sitting. It kind of works, but I prefer standing. But yeah, I think it went really well. I think the tier list worked out pretty well. Maybe I'll do more in the future. I have some other ideas. You know, I did the Carmine Family right now. I mean, what's really stopping me from like going back to like previous discussion series and doing those? Like, maybe I could do the Hive Buster discussion series I did. I could take everyone that's a part of the Hive Busters and put them on like the same kind of thing, a high, mid, and low tier like Hive Buster. You know what I mean? I just finished the Gabe's Convoy discussion series. We could take everyone in Gabe's Convoy and be like, okay, where do they stack on the list? Where are we putting them? I could do that. Like, I don't know, like, maybe I should. Maybe that'll be how I end every discussion series. Like next year's discussion series, I could do it for that one maybe. I don't know. But yeah, that's going to do it. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank everyone for making this possible, and thank the patrons for making this possible. The next Gear Talk, I should be up and standing. I should be there. This will be just a quick update on health-wise, and we'll have it done. I'm not going to make this go longer than it needs to, but when it comes to my health at the moment, I've started to practice walking again. I have my left leg. I'm not putting any weight on it, but I'm able to move it into using balance and actually making momentum without putting weight on it with my crutches. So by the next Gear Talk in 2 weeks, I should be able to stand pretty well on my own without any issues. If not, we'll do one more sitting. It doesn't hurt. But I should be back to around 80 to 90% strength and everything again by then. But until then, if I got to do sitting, I'll do sitting. So, again, thank you all for watching. I love you all to death. I'll see you in the next one. Later.